Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Canto 7, Chapter 3, entitled Hiranyakashipu's plan to become immortal. Anyone plan to become immortal? This is right with the and we're on 30 waterfall. I'll just read this to see where it is. There's nothing separate from you, whether it be better or lower, stationary or moving. The knowledge derived. Can you want more Bhagavate? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we're reading text. Well, I just read that one. There's nothing separate from you, whether it be better or lower, stationary or moving.
Pumse stito dhamani brahmanasche avyakta atma purusha purana
Yaktam vibhos stulamidam shariram
yaktam siddhosthulamidam shariram yanendriya prana manogunam swam stito dhamani parameshche avyakta atma purusha purana
Vyaktam vibhostulamidam sariram.
yaktam vibhostulamidam shariram
Yatendriya Prana Manogunam Swam
Yanendriya Prana Manogunam Swam
Pukshe Stito Dhamani Paramishye
Pushte Stito Dhamani Paramistye
Avyakta Atma Purusha Puranaha
Avyakta Atma Purusha Puranaha Yakam Vidhostulamidam Shariram
Yatam Vivostulam Idam Shariram
Yanendriya Prana Manogunam Swam
Yatendriya Prana Manogunam Swam
Pushte Stito Dhamani Paramistye
Pukshe Stito Dhamani Paramishye
Avyakta Atma Purusha Purana
Avyakta Atma Purusha Purana
Bhaktyam vipostulam idam sariram
Yakam Vidhostulamidam Shariram
Yenindraya pranamano gurasvam
Yanendriya Prana Manogunam Swam
Sestito dhamani paramisya
Pushte Stito Dhamani Paramistye
Avyakta atma purasha purana
Avyakta Atma Purusha Purana
Vyakam
Yaksam
manifested.
manifested
Vivo.
Vivo,
Oh my Lord.
O my Lord,
Sulam.
Sulam,
Cosmic manifestation.
cosmic manifestation,
Even this. Eternal body. Yena, by which Indriya, the senses, Prana, the life air, Mana, the mind, Gunan, transcendental qualities, Tvam, you, Bungshe, enjoy, Stita, situated, Dhamani, in your own abode, Brahmashche, the supreme, Avyakta, not manifested through ordinary knowledge, Atma, the soul, Purusha, the supreme person, Purana, the oldest. Translation, O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand your universal form within this cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the supreme, the super soul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. It's a shame we got the wrong person there, because that's a nice phrase. Responsibly, O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand yourself. You expand your universal form within this cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the super soul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. By Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is said that the absolute truth appears in three features, namely impersonal Brahman, localized supersoul, and ultimately the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna. The cosmic manifestation is the gross material body of the supreme personality of Godhead, who enjoys the taste of the material mellows by expanding his parts and parcels, the living entities, who are qualitatively one with him. The supreme personality of Godhead, however, is situated in the Vaikuntha planets, where he enjoys the spiritual mellows. Therefore, the one absolute truth, Bhagavan, pervades all by his material cosmic manifestation, the spiritual Brahman effulgence, and his personal existence as the Supreme Lord. Om Agana Timiranda Shagananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Kadati Swavadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Hiranyakashipu has got the wrong person, but it's the right prayer, but it's the wrong person. So it would have been, things would have been different if he'd have known that Krishna was God. But it's a bit complicated because he knew that Krishna killed his brother. So sometimes people are like that. They say, I'm not going to believe in God, as if they can spite him. But if I don't believe in him, then he won't exist. Or if he does exist, I'll kill him when I come up against him. And that's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, actually, in the chapter 16. It says, I have killed my enemy and I will kill him in the future. This is the way the demon thinks. And I will become richer and more powerful. So they assert their superiority over God by killing people and saying, well, or killing animals for that matter. Where was God when I killed him? I must be more powerful than God. God couldn't protect him. And then the more they kill people, the more they start feeling like that. There was a podcast the other day that devotee Raghunath, who does that little podcast, they were talking about Mayo. He killed phenomenal amount of people. It was 60 million people. It was a tenth of the population on the planet he killed. They were just talking about different people that have killed people. So once you get a taste for killing, they say that when you kill somebody, at first it's very, very hard, but once you've killed one person, then it becomes easy after that. So this is the demoniac mentality. And then ultimately, if I can kill everybody, then I can kill God as well. When I come up against God, I'll kill him too. And that's eventually what happens. Eventually, Hiranyakashipu comes up against God and tries to kill him. Do you know that story? Do you know the story? Lord Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu? You know, yeah. You know the story? Lord Nrsingadev? Yeah. So that's what happens when you try and fight God. So the best thing is to be on the side of the Lord. Are you on the side of the Lord? We used to have one lady that used to come up to us when we were doing books. She'd say, you on the side of the Lord, honey? Say, we are. Well, that's okay then. You're on the side of the Lord. If you're not, and you're against him, you're his enemy, then that's what a demon is. A demon is an enemy of God. And anyone that supports God or worships God, they're also an enemy. And then you have secular state where they don't allow people, they don't allow the young people, they allow the old people to go into the church. As soon as a young person tries to go, hey, where are you going? They want people not to believe in God. They want to have a demoniac society where everyone is an atheist. And then, not a coincidence, in a society where it's a secular state, people are more depressed. And did you know, are you from Bengal? Bengali, yeah? Oh. Oh, Rishikesh. Oh, okay. Nice. So Bengal gets voted, it has done anyway, year after year as the happiest country in the world. Bengalis. So anywhere where God consciousness is prevalent, then there will automatically be a happier and a more auspicious atmosphere. So we have a meeting in Glasgow on Saturday nights in a centre where you've been, of course, Sweet Om. And some of the people that are coming there, they don't initially have any faith in God really, but they've just come along because they want to do some meditation, peace of mind. So what we're encouraging them to take away with them is a little bit of faith that there is a God and that he is there, and that if you call on his names, he will make himself feel present to you until he becomes a concrete reality, which will then help with stress and other problems. And young people today have many, many things to distract them on the spiritual path. But if you've got a good mother, then you're very fortunate. There's Guru Pati, and Mataji. So if your mother's good, then that's your saving grace. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the absolute truth appears in three features. Impersonal, localized, and the Supreme Person. So the example is often given of the sun. The sun is in one place, and yet it pervades the entire universe. And what's interesting about the sun, I was just reading this morning, there's a seed verse in the Bhagavatam that says, wherever it appears to be, if it's not connected to you, then it's simply the illusory energy. So if you're in the sun, if you turn your back on the sun, then you see darkness, but darkness is only the absence of light. So if you see anything as being separate from Krishna, then you're in darkness. And if you can connect it to Krishna, I was reading another verse as well, which really struck me this morning. It was the, does anyone know that verse where Rupa Goswami says it's false renunciation if you renounce something without being aware of its relationship with God? Anyone familiar with that one? Anyone know the Sanskrit? Prapanchikataya budhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. One who rejects anything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. Which is interesting because, you know what brahmachari is? Brahmachari? Do you know what a brahmachari is? No? You know there's Brahma, you know the Varnashram, the swastika, represents 4 ashrams and 4 varnas. So the 4 ashrams, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. That's the 4. And then the 4 varnas are the 4 types of people: Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmin. So for us, we have a brahmachari ashram. This is our brahmachari ashram here. And your son has just joined the brahmachari ashram, so he won't be leaving when you do. He'll be getting a free haircut. We call it a short back and polish. Congratulations. He looks a bit hesitant. I tell you, you'll be okay. After the first 10 years, you'll be okay. You'll get into the swing of it. First 10 years are the hardest.
Yeah, first time here. First time here, I didn't do this. So I think that's why we don't have anything. I know only chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, other things are.
Well, your boy was good this morning. He sat there practically the whole 2 hours and chanted, which is amazing, you know.
He tried the first time chanting.
Wow.
Sometimes he do at home, sometimes not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. Because usually when people come the first time, they chant, but then they start doing the Z mantra. Have you heard of the Z mantra? The Z mantra is this: Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's called the Z mantra. But if your son does decide he wants to become a staunch brahmachari, then his renunciation will be false unless he understands that he's renouncing the attraction to the opposite sex, because he understands that all these girls are actually reflections of gopis who are meant only for the pleasure of Krishna. Then his renunciation is perfect. So that's the art of seeing that everything is related to Krishna. Everything is meant for Krishna's enjoyment. And as soon as we think we are here to enjoy it, then we step in between Krishna and the sense object, and then we are in darkness. Only when we turn toward Krishna, Krishna Surya Sama, Mayahaya Andakara. Wherever there is Krishna, there is light, and wherever there isn't Krishna, there is darkness. So as soon as you're trying to be Krishna, then you've just put yourself into darkness. Of course, we can accept it theoretically, but we have to learn it by default so that we don't think it just automatically. And that takes training generally. And first of all, it takes untraining, because we've been trained in a certain way in the Western world, and then we're trying to untrain ourselves and then train ourselves. That's why if you want to learn to play piano, it's more expensive to learn to play the piano if you've already played the piano. If you're just clean, straight, don't know how to do anything, then it's one price. But if you've been playing it and it's like a real crazy way you've been playing it, then it costs more, because he's got to first of all show you that way is wrong and then train you the other way. And that's why it's very difficult for us in the West, because in the Vedic culture, the brahmachari was celibate for 25 years. Then he would if he wanted, enter a married life. But he had 25 years training under his belt. Whereas here, we're trained badly. We mix with the opposite sex at school, and everything's very loose. Then suddenly we become a brahmachari, and then after 5 years, we want to get married. So it's going to be difficult. But it is difficult. That's an observation. But if you've been brought up nicely, and you've been brought up strictly, and you follow the regulative principles already, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no eating meat, and no gambling, then practicing spiritual life is very easy. So anyway, God has 3 features, and anyone that's trying to approach God in any way is a great soul. But then there's Vasudeva Bhagavati Mahatmanastamam Pata. Is that the one? Bahunam Janmanam Mante. After many births and deaths, one who is actually a great soul, Vasudeva Savamati, he understands that Krishna, Vasudeva is everything. So sometimes people are spiritually inclined, but it's going to take them many lifetimes to get to the point of understanding that there's one supreme person behind everything. So if you've already accepted that principle, then you can pat yourself on the back as being one amongst many millions. It's very, very rare that someone... I mean, if people even believe in God, it's becoming very rare. And then if they do believe in God, they believe in an impersonal energy. And then they believe God is in their heart. And then finally, they get to the point, a very rare few, that believe that God is a separate person. And they experience that relationship. Belief is nice, but we have to go beyond just belief. We have to experience it for ourselves. Pratyaksagavamam dhamyam. It is the perfection of religion because it gives direct experience of the self by realization. So just believing is nice, but we have to go beyond just believing. Just believing is not sufficient. You could believe that God is a very beautiful person and believe that God is a very wonderful person and believe God is a very attractive person, but that won't make you fall in love with God. We're trying to fall in love with God. So to fall in love with somebody, you need to have interaction and you need to be aware of his presence. Very hard to fall in love with an impersonal blob. So, where is parts and parcels? The cosmic manifestation is the gross material body of the Supreme. So some people may say, I'm not attracted to Krishna, I'm attracted to Maya, but that's also Krishna. It's being attracted to the back of Krishna rather than to the front of Krishna. And then you can enjoy the inferior material mellows. And Krishna is ultimately the enjoyer. So the easiest way to understand Krishna is to come to understand ourselves. Are we impersonal or do we have feelings? Do we have personality or are we just robots walking around? So unfortunately, some people do find it hard to believe that God is a person because they're finding it hard to be a person themselves. You ever met anyone like that who finds it hard to be a person? They just find it's just too taxing on them to be so accountable and so personal. So they have to switch off and desensitize themselves to the environment. And that's why phones can be handy, and tablets and drugs to help you disconnect from what's going on around you. So we have to get free from that and experience that we are persons. And then when we become aware that we're a person and that we have certain tendencies, we want to love, we want to be loved, and that we become happier by serving than being served. Anyway, as we become more aware of our real nature, then we can start to see that we're just a tiny reflection of Krishna. And we can start to understand Krishna. Any questions or comments? Prabhupada ends by saying that the Supreme Person is situated in the Vaikuntha planets and that he is Bhagavan and he pervades the material cosmic manifestation. Any questions or comments on that? It's good that you came today because this is like a really basic breakdown of the truth, you know. The Brahman aspect is the effulgence. When you see Krishna and he has this glow around him, that's the Brahman. And then the super soul is where Krishna expands himself, and that expansion is a four-armed form. And not as powerful as Krishna. It's an expansion of Krishna. And that Adhoksaja Vishnu goes into the heart of every living entity. He's sitting in every living entity's heart. And he's giving us our ability to remember. And if we want to forget also, he helps us to forget. He does everything for us. He's kind of monitoring everything in the background, making sure your heart is beating, making sure the blood is turning into marrow, helping you to digest. Everything's going on. He's doing it. He's making the hair grow at the top of your head, making your fingernails grow. So many things he's doing. So that's the next level. You become aware that there's something inside you that is giving your ability, your instinct, your intuition. And then you go up from there into directly realizing that there's a Supreme Person, Bhagavan. So Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. 3 levels of understanding the absolute truth. And if you compare it to the sun, then you have the sunlight, the sun globe, and the sun god, the person who's in charge of the sun. Yes, Pip. Hare Krishna.
I'm thinking that if Lord Vishnu and heart is in control of all these bodily functions, then if somebody has some disability in their body, can we think that Krishna's making a mistake?
Well, he's making a mistake, but he's making a perfect mistake, which is reciprocating with your mistake in the first place. So just like if you go up to a clock, a grandfather clock, and you stick a screwdriver right through the face of it, and then you turn around and say, the person who made this clock has made a big mistake because it's not, the hour hand isn't going round properly anymore. So you've abused the facility, and so the facility perfectly and completely responds to the level of abuse. So if you have a human form and you decide you want to fill it with all kinds of nasty substances, and then later on you're wondering why you have all these mental debilities, it's because you put the screwdriver in the grandfather clock's face in the first place. And with everything, you get an instruction manual. And so in the human form of life, you also get an instruction manual. An instruction manual is telling you what to eat, how to sleep, how to have a relationship with a woman, how to follow your duties, how to live, how to die. And that instruction manual is the Bhagavad Gita. And so some people may say, well, that's not fair. I've never heard of the Bhagavad Gita. It's some obscure Indian scripture. You know, can you imagine that? You get an instruction manual, like we've got this little MP3 player. We didn't know how to work it at first. And we phoned them up and they say, well, there is an instruction manual, but it's in Sanskrit in a cave in the Himalayan mountains. I say, well, that's a bit unfair, isn't it? I mean, why couldn't you put it with the product? So appreciating that, Krishna decided to have millions of Bhagavad Gitas printed and distributed in 90 languages, and that's what we have right now. So nobody can make that excuse. Everyone's got a Bhagavad Gita practically, or knows somebody that's got a Bhagavad Gita. Shishi, Kodanitai, Maya Pashashi, Ki, Jai. But then guess what? You don't just need an instruction manual. You need an instruction manual to understand the instruction manual. And that's Prabhupada's purports. You have a direct Sanskrit translation, and then you have a purport, and that's Srila Prabhupada bringing us up to speed. And then we have an instruction manual for understanding the instruction manual of the instruction manual. And they're Prabhupada's disciples and followers. And they're taking the books, and they're assimilating the information, and they're breaking it down piecemeal, so that people can just take little bits and build up, and assimilate the information. And everybody has to learn how to do that. Everyone has to learn how to give class, how to do books, how to chop cauliflowers, how to be nice and friendly and respectful. Everyone has to learn everything. You can't say, well, sorry, I'm not in the cauliflower department. I'm Pujari. I just do the top stuff. I don't empty the bins. But you have to learn. Prabhupada wanted us to become Daksha, expert at everything. How to lead kirtan, how to assimilate the information. And so sometimes we need help with that. So we're little walking instruction manuals ourselves. Prabhupada said our family business is writing books. So we should every devotee should write a book. Shiv Ramanuj wants his disciples to all do that. Because we all have our own story of how we came to Krishna consciousness, implemented it, and sustained it over a long period of time. So that's useful information. It can help at least one other person. Any questions or comments on that? So what first attracted you to Krishna consciousness?
I want to learn all things about the prayer, bhakti, I don't know, but I want to learn because I feel very happy and being here and
You pleased with the temple? You didn't think the temple was going to be so nice? Were you expecting the temple to be like this? Yeah? And you also have some interest in Krishna consciousness? Yeah. What was the first thing that attracted you to Krishna consciousness? Kirtan, yeah. Yeah, for a lot of devotees, when they see the Harinam, the devotees dancing in public, that very much attracts them, They think, wow, that's what I've been looking for. It's usually the first. That's usually the turning point for a lot of people. But what attracted you to Krishna consciousness? Oh, very nice.
Still trying to read Bhagavad Gita every day.
Oh,
Whenever I get a chance.
yeah. Very good. You have a favorite chapter? Do you have a favorite chapter?
Say 12th.
The 12th chapter, devotional service. Yeah, nice. Yeah, in 12th chapter, Krishna is saying, if you can't do this, then at least do that. If you can't do that, then at least do this. At least do something. And even if you can't do anything for me, go and do something to help somebody else at least, Don't lead a completely selfish, petty existence where you're just out for yourself. So 12th chapter is nice. Do you have any questions in general about anything in Krishna consciousness? You've been coming along, or you've been reading Bhagavad Gita. Any questions? Yeah.
how to self-focusly mind don't go here to there.
I'm afraid you've asked the wrong person. You'll have to ask somebody like Prajumna. Or Jayananda, he's very focused in japa. Yeah, well, it's not easy actually to do that because the actual chanting process itself, at the best, probably takes about 10% of your consciousness. So you can go Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and that's nice. But then you've got about 90% of your consciousness wondering what to do with itself. And so Jiva Goswami is explaining that we shouldn't just be hearing and chanting, we should be remembering as well. And because in the beginning we don't have much of a taste for the chanting, then the mind remains unoccupied. So to remember a form of Krishna, a Leela of Krishna, that helps to absorb us more. And I do a Japa Sangha once a week. You're welcome to join on Thursdays between 7 and 8. And it just came up, last Japa Sangha was, does anybody have a favorite Leela that they find helps them when they're chanting? And one of the Leelas is Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. So Krishna is the holy name, and the hood of the Kaliya is your tongue. And you're kind of like resisting, but Krishna's dancing on you anyway. And you're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And the poison's coming out. I don't really want to do this. This is boring. Oh, no, Krishna. But you're doing it anyway. And Krishna keeps dancing on the hoods, on your tongue. Then eventually, your tongue becomes subdued, and you think, actually, I'm just going to be Krishna's servant. Krishna beats you into submission. And then the chanting goes very nice. So it's a nice Leela. Another nice Leela is when Lord Ramachandra was going across to Lanka, they made a bridge out of rocks, but the rocks would sink. Only the ones that had Ram written on them floated. In the same way we're saying mantras. And if we're not attentive, then the mantra sinks. If we're attentive and we chant it purely, then the mantra floats. And then we build a bridge and we can go across. But we don't meet Radha when we go across. When we go across, we meet Radha and Krishna. But the mantras have to float. They have to be transcendental. So if you're chanting and they're sinking, then you're not really getting anywhere. So that's a nice Leela to be meditating on when you're chanting. Another nice Leela is the demons and the demigods. They got together one day and they were churning the ocean, the milk ocean. And they had a big mountain that they were using. And Vasuki was acting as a rope, the snake. They were pulling it. So the demons were pulling and then the demigods were pulling. And that churning was creating a pleasing sensation on the back of Kurma. He was the tortoise. It's a very unusual pastime, actually. There's a lot of things going on, but Kurma's there, and he's got an itchy back. So luckily, there's a mountain on his back getting used to churn the ocean, so he's getting his itch. So when you're chanting, you can be thinking, the demons are pulling, my bad thoughts are pulling me, and now the good thoughts are pulling me, and now the bad thoughts are pulling me, and now the good thoughts are pulling me. There's like this to and froing going on, but the sensation is creating a pleasing effect on Kurma's back. He's like, oh, they're trying to chant. So whether it's going this way or that way, still it's satisfying to him. And then at the same time, the ocean is being churned. So wonderful things are coming up. Wonderful realizations will start to come up if you can just persevere with the churning process. So that's also a nice Leela to meditate on whilst you're chanting. And then that will help enhance and solidify your chanting, you know. If you're just chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare, the tendency is to think, well, I'm chanting and there's not a lot happening. So do I need to sew a hole in my socks? And did I get all the shopping? So you're still chanting, but because the mind's not occupied, the mind wanders onto other things, you see. Because it's not enough. In the beginning, maybe it is enough because you don't know the mantra and it's taken full concentration. But once you know the mantra inside out, back to front, then it doesn't take very much to chant it. You've done it so many times. So that is the challenge. Can you keep your chanting fresh? And can you keep the mind occupied all the time? You have a question? You look like you've got a deep question you're pondering on.
I'm not being able to be consistent with my chanting and everything, like reading Bhagavatam as well.
Yeah.
Because of the, I would say, time. I'm not really good with him.
Well, when we talk about time, when we're talking about spiritual life and we're talking about time, do you know what is the most important time in the day if you want to practice spiritual life? What's the most important time of the day? The most important time of the day is 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Because whatever you're doing at 8 p.m. is going to have a very big effect upon what time you get up the next day. If you decide at 8 p.m. that this film is a waste of time and this, whatever I'm doing is a total load of rubbish, and you decide I'm going to go to bed, and you get to bed by 9, you can be up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. If you can get up early in the morning, like Prajum is saying, you hit the Brahma Muhurta, that is the best time to chant and read. Everything's quiet. Nobody's getting up doing any nonsense right now. The ether is still, and you're going to practice your spiritual life. Those hours are like gold. After midnight through till the sunrise, those hours are like gold. So the earlier you can get up, the easier it's going to be. If you can get up early, I guarantee the hardest test is getting up early. So we take it back, because it's not going to be easy to get up early if you went to bed at 2 o'clock and you're watching crazy films all night. So if you're in bed by 8, 9 at the latest, then you can get up early. And if you can get up early, you've won already. Whatever happens after that, that is your big test. Can you rise early? If you can rise early, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you can chant all your rounds before Mangalati, then you'll never have to get married. So then you'd have to get up at like 2 o'clock. Well, 1:30 if you're going to have a shower. That's it. What are you doing at 8 p.m.? What we'll do, actually, if you're okay, we've got these surveillance cameras. We'll just screw one on the top of your head, and we'll all be watching you at 8 o'clock tonight to see what you're doing. Are you good with that? Okay. Then we'll see if you've been a good boy. You go to put the TV on and you think, oh no, pull the Bhagavad Gita out. You have a question? How old are you? 16, yeah.
I just have a thought. See, if I sleep early, I still can't wake up early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that takes training, yeah.
See, if I sleep at like 8, I will still wake up at like 7 or something.
Oh, okay.
I can't wake up early.
Well, that is a challenge, yeah. For a lot of us, it's difficult to change the body clock as well. So we have to be a little bit patient with ourselves. We can't do everything immediately. Generally, in Krishna consciousness, everything is in small increments, very small, gradual stages, But they say that whatever you measure improves. So if you can just start measuring when you're taking rest and how much rest you're taking, once you start measuring it, they say that's people that smoke cigarettes, they've never been able to give up for years, All they have to do is count the amount that they're smoking. So if they're smoking 40 a day, they just smoke 39 the next day. And then they do that for a week. Then the next week they do 38. And eventually they're able to give up smoking. If they were to just stop immediately, then it would just be too much for the system. So they do it bit by bit. So you have to be determined and you have to be patient, and just little by little, okay? I'm going to try and get up half an hour earlier or 10 minutes earlier, whatever it is, than I did the day before. And then bit by bit by bit. And then once you get into the habit and your body clock changes, then things happen automatically, It's amazing. We know the drum, the mridanga. I mean, I can't play it really very well, but I was surprised to see there's certain beats that you do, and there's a thing called muscle memory. So all you have to do is go through the beat. Just keep going through the beat, and after a certain period of time, you start doing it without even thinking about it, because the muscles have memorized the angle and the momentum with which you're hitting the drum, and it just happens automatically. And when you're trying to learn how to do it, it just seems like this is impossible. This is impossible. You could give up. So it's like that sometimes with spiritual life as well. You're trying to do something, and you're not used to doing it, but you go through the motions anyway. And then after a while, it just starts happening automatically, And then, because if you're from an Indian family, then you're probably not used to breaking the principles, the 4 principles: illicit sex, intoxication, meat, and gambling. For a lot of devotees that are born in the West, they've been used to those activities, and then to give them up is very difficult. On top of getting up early, it's a major challenge, But what we're seeing in our community is the Indians that come to visit have already got a certain amount of culture anyway, and they'll be able to sustain themselves, wherever they're doing, they'll do that steadily for the rest of their lives, And if they're married and they're settled in their ashram, then you can guarantee that they're always going to be around. Whereas someone that's training and trying to be a brahmachari and give up so many things and fighting with so many unwanted things, it's a little bit more unstable for them. So yeah, you guys are the future. Any other questions or comments? So when you're reading Bhagavad Gita, I'll give you a little tip actually for reading any of Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada said, my books are only word jugglery to get you to chant Hare Krishna. So as we're reading, we will find every now and again a little gem where Prabhupada says something about the holy name, which is very inspiring, very compelling. And if you have a little book when you're reading and you jot down anything that you find inspiring, and then you keep that book, call that book Gems, a book of gems, and you keep that book. And then you can just consult that book from time to time if you just want inspiration to chant. And it's a great way to read the book, because we're supposed to not just read, we're supposed to study. And when you're studying anything, you always have like an objective. Like if you're studying and you're going to be doing an exam, then you're thinking, I'll need to remember that because I'll probably get asked that question, So with us, we're studying the books because when we go to pick up the bead bag, Maya says, why are you doing this? This is just a waste of time. It's, this is useless. You could be saying anything, you could be doing better things with your time. And then you pull out your book that you've made all the notes in about how the holy name is so powerful and you need to do it. And then you're okay. And then you'll have the faith to chant. It's important. If you want to hear the holy name, you have to hear about the holy name. If you don't hear about the holy name, then you'll lose the inspiration to hear the holy name. The only reason we are hearing the holy name is because we've heard about the holy name. That's why we're able to hear the holy name, or at least attempt to try and hear the holy name. Hearing the holy name isn't so easy because it's only by Krishna's grace that he allows you to hear his holy name. So Krishna has to be pleased with you, and then you can hear his holy name. If he's not pleased with you, then you'll find the holy name very evasive. Jai, Iskon Guruvinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai, Gaura, Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All of you ki, Jai.